Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of 8 Dead Giants. I am joined today by a returning giant. Hey Rob, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back. And it's a good time because we've also, and actually you kind of reminded me about one of the main things we're going to talk about today, which we'll get to shortly. So that was really helpful when we were planning the show. But I think it's lined up really nicely actually that you're on this one because you're a big fan of what we're going to talk about, aren't you?
Yes, very much so. But, it's strange how the segments lined up. Stranger things have happened, of course, but, we go with it.
Well, you may not remember Rob is the king of the bad puns, so that was genius. Well done, sir. Well done for working that one in. But no, it's a Sunday morning record here. And I'm drinking. I've had my breakfast. Have you had your breakfast, Rob?
I have indeed. What was your breakfast?
I had you know how they have maple pecan lattices? You know those things, like the pastry. I had that, but blueberry. Okay. So a blueberry lattice. It was good. It was really good. Almost too much blueberry. It was like a blueberry explosion. And I had a yerba mate tea to go with that as well, which was quite nice. Have you ever had yerba mate?
No, literally never heard of it until today.
So yerba mate is this like super caffeinated energy drink style tea, almost like I shouldn't say energy drink style. It's turning up in a lot of these new energy drinks now. Yerba mate is a form of caffeinated energy, but it's a tea originally, and I had just a tea version of it, and I'm really good, really tasty. Yeah, nice tea. I've been getting into tea recently because of my wife getting me into it. So, it's very tasty. What about you?
I had on the continent in Europe, and you get them over here as well, the Day 7 croissants that are individually wrapped with the choco filling. I had one of those. It was very nice. I like my pain au chocolat or pain au chocolats and chocolate croissants, stuff like that. So I had one of those.
You cannot go wrong with a chocolate croissant. Oh, so good.
Sunday morning treat.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that is some tasty stuff, and now I'm kind of feeling hungry again. I don't know if we should have talked about what we had for breakfast. Now I'm sort of fixating on that a little bit. But look, I think we should just get into this because I have a feeling this is going to be quite the bumper episode. Yes. We've got lots to cover, but I will do a little tease before we get into that, which is make sure you like and subscribe and give us reviews because next week Summer Games Fest kicks off, which is the kind of the replacement to E3. And I can tell you, whatever happens, whoever co-hosts I have, whatever giants join me, we are going to talk about a lot of games. Next week it's going to be a game explosion, so make sure you stick around for that in a week's time as well. But before we get there, we've got some great stuff to get into, so we'll take a little break and we'll be back with some Tudum. So when I just did that slightly bad impression of the Netflix sound, I thought to myself, in post, I could put the sound in. But then I thought, would they copyright strike me for that? I feel like they might. So I better not do that.
Because I was going to suggest the same thing, because it'd be nice, tudum, tudum, tudum. Yeah, anyway.
I have a feeling I'd get claimed. I really do. I think they'd come for me. Because it's such a uniquely associated with Netflix sound. I bet you they have that, when it works for copyright strike, they have these automated systems searching for the infringement, and I bet you they've got stuff listening out there on YouTube looking for that. I bet you.
The certain law would dictate, yes, it would happen. You'd think it would be absolutely fine, and it wouldn't be. I don't know if it's under open creative license or not.
One of the benefits we have right now with the podcast, we're not charging, we don't have sponsorship, and advertising isn't turned on. That means a lot of the time they do sort of not hassle you too much. But I have had in the past when I was doing video reviews, one that always sticks in my mind is a non-monetized video. And I had a copyright strike against me for reviewing WWE like 2K23 or something, or 22, because I'd used in the video, I'd used the kind of intro sequence, which is this live action sequence that they had at the beginning of the episodes of Netflix and of Raw and SmackDown. And they strike me for that. And they didn't just say, don't worry because you're not monetized. They actually went, you got to pull this. So I had to pull the whole thing off of YouTube, even though I was using it, as a review for their game. In a positive light, I was actually quite positive about that one as well. So yeah, it's strange sometimes what you get hit for. Yeah, it's weird.
But, fun police. Sorry.
Yeah, like wrestling. Oh, whatever. But in a related way, because I mentioned accidentally then Netflix, because Raw and SmackDown are now on Netflix internationally. It made me think of that. So let's talk about Tudum. I'm going to throw to you in a second to get into the main thing that we want to talk about here, I think. The big thing that's exciting. But let me just say, my intention this morning was to get up before we recorded and watch Tudum, the whole thing. So I put it on, I saw 2 hours, and then you'd you'd done some show notes for me.
Yeah.
And there were 5 or 6 YouTube video links. And I'm like, 5 or 6 YouTube links, 2 hours. What is this? And then I started watching it and I realized, oh, this is like the most cringy, uncomfortable, weirdly padded out. Oh, it was just like some kind of weird Netflix loving. It was just really strange format for marketing. Did you watch it? Have you watched it done before? Like the actual thing? It's not enjoyable.
No, I haven't watched Tudum. This year I didn't watch Tudum. I waited for the recap and picked what I wanted to see, which is what we're going to talk about because it's the big hitters. It was presented by Lady Gaga because that's, of course, naturally a choice. She's a talented musician and I assume a great presenter, so absolutely fine. But it definitely strikes me as everyone loves the cult of Netflix. Let's all be happy about Netflix. When they cancel things after season 1 and so on.
I don't think everybody... I mean, yeah, that's the thing. That's this weird fake persona that they're saying everybody loves Netflix. But that's not true. No. Netflix, especially now, has dropped quite a lot in its popularity and its ubiquity. And I don't know, man. Like, I've never been less interested in Netflix than I am at the moment in terms of the alternatives that are out there and the shows films that they're actually producing. We're going to talk about some stuff that looks really good, don't get me wrong, but there were times years ago where everything you got excited about came out on Netflix, right? You were hyped for it, like, because it was just one awesome new thing after another, but it's not that anymore. So I don't know. But let's not be too negative. Let's get the hype train going. Let's talk about
thing.
Go for it.
Big positive thing. Stranger Things 5. We finally, after months of waiting, we have dates. Unfortunately, dates in the plural for when it's airing, which is the only annoying thing. But we have dates and we have a trailer. The trailer wasn't very long. It was only a couple of minutes, and I think that was probably wise because the more they show in the trailer, the more it's going to get picked apart, assumptions and expectations. This is going to be a very hard franchise to stick the landing, and they have to stick this landing. This has been, about 10 years or so that Stranger Things has been on the air and showing and being pushed through. I forget exactly when Stranger Things season 1 came out.
Shall I do a live Google? Carry on.
Do a live Google. But yes, the first batch of episodes is on November the 26th, which is part 1. Christmas is part 2, and the finale is on New Year's Eve. So before the end of the year, the story will be finished.
Yes.
So
live Google result, it was July the 15th, 2016. So we're 9
years in the making.
Yeah. Just on, well, if you count the fact that New Year's Eve, most people will actually be finishing off in 2026, we're going to be hitting 10.
I will be finishing it in 2025. I will be watching it on New Year's Eve. That is the plan. I am so excited for this.
So let's break this trailer down a little bit and talk a bit more about Stranger Things. So the trailer was interesting, right? So you talk about it being 2 minutes long. Actually, it's more like 40 seconds because over a minute is clips from previous series and seasons. And I actually think that's not bad. That's a smart thing to do at this point. You're building that interest. You're building the hype. You're reminding people of the show. You're reminding people of the big plot points. And actually probably getting people interested in doing a rewatch, right? Which is going to be definitely what Netflix want you to do. So I'm tempted to do a rewatch again now, knowing where we're aiming for November. That gives us all plenty of time, I think, to do that. I thought the trailer was really evocative. I thought the bits we did get in that last 40 seconds or so looked dark and scary and everything you want from a Stranger Things. And then obviously we were told that release schedule of 3 bits. Now I get the impression, I could be wrong. Now I don't know any. I can't remember because this production has been quite long and it's been up and down about what they're doing and how they're doing it. I think they're going to tool it in a way which is in November you're going to get all but 2 bits. And then on Christmas, you'll get the penultimate, say, feature length. And then on New Year's Eve, you get the finale feature length. And it will basically end with 2 movies. And that's my theory, because it won't be like what they did with Cobra Kai, which was like 5 or 6 episodes, 5 or 6 episodes, 5 or 6 episodes. It's going to be, I think, 6 or 7 episodes, one. And it's gonna be a punchy kind of finale like that. That would be my guess, anyway.
My guess is 99% the same. My only difference is that I recall seeing in publication, because I follow Stranger Things news like a bloodhound, is that most of the episodes are basically mini movies. A lot of them are feature length because they have so much to wind up. They have so many plot points to all bring together and reconcile in a satisfying way, which is the hard bit. So I reckon we're going to have longer episodes. Easily, I reckon, hour plus, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you see it, don't you, now when you watch streaming shows that they can go in one show. You might have a 35-minute episode, a 55-minute episode, 100, 65, 70-minute episode, back to a 35-minute episode. It depends on how much freedom that production company is being given and creators and stuff to do that. But also, it's that kind of, why not? It's a streaming platform. It doesn't need to be aired in traditional TV. It doesn't need to worry about advert breaks and where they fit in, so just play around with it and give us what we need. But I do think I think that one, because it was Christmas Day and New Year's Day after that November break. That's quite a gap. And then a very short amount of time. I feel like that is them saying it's almost going to be, that's almost traditional in its way of going, right, you're going to have a week between these two, Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, basically a week. And you're going to have that, oh my God, cliffhanger. And then you'll have some kind of conclusion. Or we might get conclusion and epilogue. We might get a time jump or something. We might, there's a lot of things we don't know about what they're going to try and tell narratively. I'm very curious, like you said, about that landing. I feel like there's going to have to be consequences. I feel like we're going to have to see major character deaths throughout this season for it to feel...
Without a doubt, I reckon Will Byers is dying.
I mean, haven't we thought that since season 1, pretty much?
True. They've been teasing us with that as a concept for years. 9 of them, in fact. So, with his connection to the Mind Flayer and / Vecna, he will have to die. I am not certain that 11 will die. I reckon 11 will get her powers taken away and live happily ever after.
That's so boring, though. That's so boring.
It is, but I don't think she's going to be living life with Hopper. I reckon Hopper's going to die as well. We already know we're getting a big time jump in this season, because in one frame of this trailer, you see 11 clutching her head, with lots of hair, I'm going to point out, which is uncommon for 11, so that's already time jump, and Hopper has a massive beard. We have evidence of a time jump compared to their aesthetics at the end of Stranger Things 5, so we know time has advanced significantly.
Yeah, I think there's a gap between the last 2 seasons, and I have a feeling we're going to be dealing with a kind of
multi-year gap.
I think the setting is going to be almost post-apocalyptic. I have a feeling we're going to be dealing with at least half of the United States, or a large portion has been overrun by the Upside Down, and then there's militaries trying to contain it. It's a fairly well trodden concept, but it's a fun one, and I think. Maybe the kids have been pushed to the sidelines and the government's got involved, and it's actually they've got to come back in because they're the ones that really know what they're dealing with, and we've got to help them. And they're going to find a way back in to deal with this conflict and resolve it in some way. So it's pure guesswork on my part, but we'll see.
I think that's supported by the fact at another point in the trailer we see a lot of military personnel. I don't know whether they're Russian or American, but you see a lot of military personnel wandering in a army base with guns and combat vehicles, with the red upside down glow coming from underneath steel plates that they're walking on. Clearly the portal is going to erupt from under them, and demogorgons, demodogs, and demobats, and whatever new fanciful things they've thought up are going to erupt from that and slaughter everybody. I think that's going to be a brutal, visceral action scene, as Stranger Things is very good with. They're good at doing the realistic, visceral scenes, but not in a gory way. It's a very fine balance. I'm always impressed by that.
Yeah, because they want to be able to appeal to that slightly wider audience. I that concept, I was thinking about it when I was watching this trailer. It's just it works so well to have kids be the ones dealing with such horrific concepts. Because it's almost like it gives you that little bit of safety net where you think, oh, it can't get that bad. So when they do pull the rug from under you, it's that much more impactful and well done. And I think they've handled that, setting it in the 80s and playing with the nostalgia element as well, but also harkening back to those movies where, the E.T.s and the Goonies and all of those vibes. And I think it's just been a really clever production, and I really do hope they bring it together at the end here and give us this finale that is worthy of what they've done previously. Like you said, it's a big challenge, but they've certainly taken their time.
They have, and I trust the Duffer Brothers to do it, because every season so far has stuck the landing. There have been one or two episodes that are a little dodgy, one or two storylines that have been a little questionable, but predominantly the story beats have built and improved over time. So I have confidence in the Duffer Brothers to be able to land this. So
my slightly big facetious prediction here is that we are going to get the Scooby Gang that 11 went off and hung out with in season 2. They're going to show up and they're going to save the day. It's going to be there, but take away the facetious element. The idea of the other experimented on kids with powers being required to maybe help actually does make sense, does it not?
Yes.
So
bringing some of them back into it, I think it would smack a little bit of Deus Ex Kid, that you're just bringing other kids into it to win the I win button through the power of friendship.
But there won't be, none of them will be kids at this point. They're all going to be in their early 20s, aren't they?
True. But it depends how they present the ages, because Millie Bobby Brown is well over her broadcasted age in Stranger Things of what she's meant to be as her chronological age as an actress. So it depends where they go with that and how big of a time jump we're talking about. But I do think
that's one of the reasons why they took the break, right? Where they went, right, these actors now are not able to convincingly pull off this age because of how long the production's taken. So we are going to write that in so that it feels a lot less uncomfortable and weird trying to believe that these guys are like in their mid-teens. And I think that's really smart that they recognize that, because it was in that last season, it was getting a bit like, right, what? Okay, sure. All right. This guy's 15, is he? All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Really. Mike is 15 and like 6 foot tall. Okay. Yeah, that's convincing.
It does happen, I suppose. It does happen, I suppose. But it was funny. Should we move on to? We'll be talking more about Stranger Things in the future, I'm sure. But shall we move on to some 100%. Of the other stuff from Tudum?
Yes, something else that I really liked, and I knew nothing about this before it came out as a trailer, and I watched the trailer this morning, and I'm hyped as hell for this. Is Frankenstein?
Yeah.
Which it's got Oscar Isaac. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it looks really gritty, really period rich, following the journey. It's more a retelling, but it's following the journey of Dr. Frankenstein and him making his monster. What I like most about this trailer is that the science looks vaguely realistic for the time period. As much as we go with this, let's just run with it. And they don't show too much of a focus on the monster. They're looking at the man, not the monster. We see a little bit of hype because we're clearly going to get a trailer 2 closer to the time. But it's predominantly focusing on Isaac and his storytelling and his acting, which is always top notch, rather than here is big monster with conflict about what life is, grr, smash, smash. You get a little, just enough to whet your appetite, but the focus is on the character, which I like.
Yeah, Del Toro is the master of gothic horror, and he does really well with the period set. things. If you've seen Crimson Peak, he nails that aesthetic again. And something he loves is the use of the color red, and there's lots of that showing up in key parts of the scenes in this trailer. He does that really well as his visual language. I think one of the most interesting things about any adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is where the focus goes, right? So depending on which one you've seen, the focus could be on the monster, the focus could be on the man. It can be quite evenly split. This trailer definitely makes you feel like the focus will be more on the man, and he's the real monster. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. We're the Walking Dead. It's that sort of allegory, isn't it? Right? But
that was an interesting noise.
That's fine. But I love Oscar Isaac. I think he's a very, very talented actor. And it's great to see him doing some stuff. I feel like he disappeared a little bit there for a few years, and obviously he's been working on some projects. But I was sort of aware of this in the background, but I'd also kind of slightly forgotten that it was coming. My only issue, right, and this comes up as well with the next thing we're going to talk about, is these beautiful cinematic films being made to go on a streaming service and not in the cinema. And I think a film like that, when you're looking at the visuals, that should be watched on a giant screen, potentially in IMAX. It looks stunning. Why am I not going to be able to see that in the cinema? I'm going to have to watch that, okay, arguably on my somewhat higher quality OLED television. Yes, probably. But I would like to see it on a massive screen. I'm sort of disappoints me. And I mean, they're all the streaming services are doing this. Though some, like Apple, who are producing right now the F1 movie is going to be out in the cinema, right? So Netflix basically doesn't do that. And I think that's quite painful for when you see something like this, and it's like, this is Guillermo del Toro. This guy's made beautiful cinematic experiences. He's not some creator that doesn't have that pedigree. He's done it, and you got Oscar Isaac in the lead. And obviously the reason that they'll go with Netflix is that Netflix are going to give them the money to make the project, and he may have struggled to get the funding from somewhere else, for example, a more traditional studio system. So Netflix have given him the big old paycheck so he can make this lavish experience, but it's one you're only going to be able to watch on TV, and it's like, yes, I want to see that in the cinema.
I know you do, but I know why. Because Netflix can't get any sort of royalties from Odeon. They won't get the same as people who are still paying or taking out new subscriptions to watch the new stuff on their platform.
Distribution it's difficult. You can't. The way it works with showing films in the cinema, it depends on the film and the production company and the deals they've got with the distribution partners. However, they can make a lot of money, right? The box office they take up to the studio takes up to 30% plus, right, from a ticket sale. So they can make a lot of money. And there are interesting deals that have been done. I had a friend who worked for Cineworld and did these deals and worked with these deals in distribution. And it's things like Disney would say, right, well, if you want this movie, you have to take this movie and you have to guarantee that the movies will be in this many screens and show on them for this amount of time. And depending on the company, they have a lot of clout and they can really make a lot of money with these quite aggressive deals. But yes, it doesn't drive a subscription model. You're right. Of course it doesn't, right?
30% is not 100%. 30% royalty is not a whole month's payment. It's just not.
And obviously the other part with Netflix is like having these prestige movies and these prestige shows is that they don't just keep you, they are actually pulling people back or bringing in new subscribers that know that's the only way to see this thing is to, even if they're only up for a month, you're getting that. And the chances are they will stay longer than that, right? Because most people don't remember to cancel after watching one thing. So,
or they'll inevitably go, oh, there's that. Oh, that's on there. That's on there. Oh, yeah, I'll watch those. And it ends up pushing over into a month because that wasn't on the last time they were on.
Yeah, and exactly, absolutely. And I'm like I said, I'm a long-term Netflix subscriber, even though I'm not necessarily the most in love with Netflix that I have been. Same. It's not every film, right? When they go, here's a film, right? But it's certain films which I go, this is visual spectacle. I would want to see this in the cinema. And I know, and this is part of the problem, I know that approach and that thinking is one that is going away, right? Yeah. And I know that's probably my generation will be the last one that really feels like that, unless you're a film obsessive. And I know those, those creators are coming up and those kids are going to be like that and they're going to still exist. But I just think it's sad that we won't get to see that film in the cinema. I really do, because it would be beautiful to watch. Like even on a pretty shitty screen, just the scale of Del Toro's directing, right? You saw it in the trailer, the landscapes and the big open shots. That's not going to feel the same on even on a 75-inch TV as it would on a ginormous cinema experience, right?
True.
It just won't be the same.
I know you specifically have put a lot of time, money, and effort into sourcing a almost borderline cinematic experience for your home entertainment setup. I've been around for the conversations and the debates where you've been finding the right TVs and spending months of research on that to find which is the right one for your setup. So if anyone's going to be able to mimic that cinematic experience, it's you. So you are going to get a hit of that, and you can watch it in your pajamas eating reasonably priced snacks instead of overpriced snacks.
The other thing that worries me, because in relation to this, is I'm a big physical media fan and collector, right? So when I see a film like this coming to Netflix don't put a lot of their stuff out on 4K Blu-rays, right? Very rare. So I'm not necessarily even be able to see this on my really nice home theater setup at the highest quality possible, right? I'm still going to have to deal with a compressed Netflix stream, right? Which will usually the biggest impact with that is not quite as high bit streams in 4K, Ultra HD, and then also because it's just as much data is not being transmitted as it does off of a disc using my dedicated 4K Blu-ray player. But the big impact is always the sound. The sound never sounds as good, not even close to as it does to coming off of the disc. It just doesn't. It's nowhere near as good. So even though I've got that set up, I know I'm going to still be somewhat restricted by the service they provide. And that's the sucks too, right? And it's all these compromises down the line, but the majority of people are more than happy to do that because majority of people still watch DVDs, and the majority of people don't even pay for the 4K HDR enabled streams on Netflix. The most of them just go for the cheapy options, and even ones with adverts, which is upsetting to me on so many levels. But
Trauma right there, trauma.
But let's move on. I'll talk about this one quickly. Wake Up Dead Man, a new Knives Out mystery coming in December by the amazing director of Rian Johnson, starring Daniel Craig in his best role. James Bond can do 100%. One.
Oh yes,
do one. He is. Oh man, the character's name has dropped out of my head.
Benoit Blanc.
Benoit Blanc, thank you. I wanted to say Matt LeBlanc, but that's the guy. That's Joey, isn't it?
Yeah,
from
that's
Friends.
Joey from Friends. Very different actors.
Very different actors. Very different actors. Yeah. But Benoit Blanc, his best character, Daniel Craig, and I loved both the previous Knives Out films, Glass Onion as well. I actually really like Glass Onion. It was very different. But I really enjoyed it, and it looks like this might be a bit different again, and maybe a little bit more gothic. So we're kind of on a bit of a gothic vibe, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I got that impression there. And
December 12th, for anyone interested, that's when that's going to be hitting. So December's looking like it's going to be a busted month for Netflix.
Well, yeah, with Stranger Things, Frankenstein was November as well. Yeah. Lots coming at the end of the year. It's going to be a really good finale. But again, this all ties into their plans with subscriptions, and it's Christmas. Give someone Netflix for Christmas. You can see that's going to be a marketing ploy. So it all kind of connects up, doesn't it? And the teaser was very much just a teaser, just to say, hey, this is coming. Put it on your horizon. There'll be a full trailer later. But it looked great. I can't wait. It's just so much fun.
I think movies like Glass Onion and Knives Out are hard to make trailers for because the storylines and plot lines are so complex, and you've got to be so careful about spoiling what's going to happen before it happens, that a trailer is a very difficult thing to make. So I'm fine with little teasers. We know Benoit's in it. We know he's doing his thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what new moral and ethical questions are going to be put in front of him. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to that one a lot. I love the first two movies.
I do too. I might do rewatch of those before that comes out, actually. That might be worth doing. Let's keep on trucking though. And the next two I'm going to throw to you because I'm not that interested in either of them. I have not watched any of the next one. So you can talk about that.
We are getting the finale of Squid Game season. I'm going to say 2.5. It's technically season 3, but I am reasonably convinced that they wanted to tell a bigger story in season 2 to finish off the storyline, but they had too many episodes, so they then split it into season 2 and season 3. So I think it was just a little bit too bumper to squeeze into one, which I do like. We're getting more. Squid Game is a fantastic show. We've got contestant 456 who is struggling with the ramifications of the end of season 2 and his betrayal, so it's going to be fantastic to see what happens. I think that's August that's coming out. I watched season 2 the day it aired with my partner, so yeah, we're massive fans of it. We're very much looking forward to it coming to Netflix, and we can finish off the story.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just never got into it. I never even. I tell you what killed my interest. It was the hype. It was the kind of like I hadn't jumped on it day one, and then everyone was talking about it, and I got so sick of hearing about it that I just didn't bother because I'd felt like I'd heard everything. Like there was to hear, like all the games I'd heard about, all the kind of Twitter. I was like, don't care. Like I feel like I know this show without watching it, so there was no point.
It is very good. I would always recommend giving it a watch. It does have a slight disconnect because it is typically recorded in Korean, and we watch the English dub, so the mouths don't always look like the same. It is the only show like it that I will watch, and that's because of the quality of the storytelling.
Why do you watch it as a dub?
Because I prefer watching dubs as opposed to sub stuff.
Oh, you're bad.
Thank you.
That's wrong.
I prefer dubs over subs.
Even anime, and you're a big anime guy.
Even anime.
You'll watch dub over sub. That's
every time.
Wow. I was watching some anime the other day, and I was watching it with dub. To be fair, yeah. Like, but
some dubs are really poor quality. Some dubs deserve a derision, don't get me wrong, but dubs for things like Attack on Titan or Kimetsu no Yaiba, like Demon Slayer, they are high quality, top tier dubs, and they deserve the recognition that they get.
The other one for me for dub is I was watching Jackie Chan's Police Story trilogy, which are early Jackie Chan movies, and they're brilliant. But I watched them as dub because I remember watching movies like that when I was a kid, when they were shown on like BBC Two or Channel 4 late at night, and they were always shown as dubs. And it's that kind of like kung fu, you know, you know how people take the Mickey out of that type of film, right? With that, but I couldn't watch them sub. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like that's what those films should be like in my head. Yeah, I couldn't watch a new thing, I don't think. Because, like I was trying to imagine watching Shogun. I don't know if Shogun's even available as dubbed. I don't think it is. It's only probably available as a subtitled option. But, like, I couldn't do it. I'm even playing Assassin's Creed Shadows subtitled and in Japanese because it's the immersive mode where I want to hear the Japanese performances. And that's a video game that I'm playing subtitled. So it's like, I don't know. I kind of see where you're coming from as well, because having to do all that reading can be a bit not fun. But at the same time, for me, yeah, it's all about that quality of that performance. And if you think the dubs is good enough, fair enough. But sometimes they're so bad. So bad.
They do the dub as well as they possibly can. Because Squid Game is entirely live action, it's not something they can just like slightly change the shape of someone's mouth. That doesn't work. But the dub is solid as far as dubs for live action things go. It's not egregious. The storyline is fantastic. We had a big storyline shift in season 2, and yeah, we get to see that pay off. I'm being slightly cagey around spoilers in case you do decide to watch it, as I think the hype around season 2 was lower than the hype around season 1.
Okay.
So yeah, I do recommend giving it at least a go. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the end of a story. This is what I'm liking in this Tudum. We have the end of Stranger Things. We have a story being told and winding up. We have the Squid Game story being told and winding up. They're not milking it for Stranger Things season 74. You know, it's not the Simpsons model where it just continues ad infinitum and predicts everything. They're telling it and they're finishing it. With Squid Game, they're telling it and they're finishing it.
Stranger Things' conclusion has got more to do with contracts and retaining the actors than it does a desire to finish the show, though. So I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure if they'd all signed up forever and they, you know, the actors in there and they were willing to just keep making it, pretty sure they'd just keep going. Pretty sure, because it's a cash cow for them, isn't it? It's one of their biggest cross-media successes of all time. So.
True, but it's a cash cow for the core story, not for the spin-offs, because they tried a spin-off and it didn't work.
Well, they didn't. I mean, they tried. They did that episode,
They tried setting up the spin-off,
they were kind of like
everyone went, no, thank you, back to the main cast, please.
Yeah, well, that's why they know they can't do this without that cast, right? And they all want to do other things. That's the main thing. I think they all want to go on. Like, look at where David Harbour is now compared to where he was. Or Millie Bobby Brown, like, and Finn Wolfhard, that's his name, isn't it? One of the he's had a big career as well now outside of it. They're all making movies and stuff. They just need to get free of the show, otherwise they get. That's why it's taken. Another reason it's taken so long to come out is because of the trying to line up their schedules so they could actually make it. The old funny behind the scenes stuff. Final thing from Tudum.
Yes. The final thing, we get the first 6 minutes of season 2 of Wednesday. I am a big fan of the Wednesday show. I enjoy season 1 quite a lot, following Wednesday Addams through her tenure at her high school, especially Gothic Supernatural High School. We're going into season 2. The first 6 minutes, she's dealing with a delightfully horrific serial killer who makes dolls of all his victims, and that was just horrifying because they're all weird and spooky, and it looks like it's going to be more of the same. If you liked season 1 of Wednesday, you're going to like season 2 of Wednesday. Dripping with flavour, dripping with everything. It's brilliant. We're developing more Addams Family lore in this telling of it. It's going to be great.
Do you what do you think of Jenna Ortega?
I think she's very good at acting the majority of the movies that she's in. She is not a universally talented actress, but the roles she takes on, she does pretty well in.
I don't quite understand. She's weird. She says some strange things. She said a thing about doing Wednesday in the last week where she said it was increasingly uncomfortable to dress up as a schoolgirl, and or something to that effect. I don't know the exact quote, but she was complaining like around that, and I'm like, you must have known that when you took the project on. Surely it wasn't like a surprise that you were going to be doing that. They would have told you that. I mean, it's like the whole look of the show is that you're in school as Wednesday Addams. It's interesting because, but I mean, the point is valid because there is a sexualization in society, especially in certain parts around in girls in school uniforms, which is pretty messed up, to say the least. But at the same time, the stuff I've seen her since Wednesday hasn't been good. Like, for the most part. And it's not necessarily she's not good, but, like, the projects haven't been great. Like, Death of a Unicorn stands out as possibly one of the worst A24 movies they've produced, and it was pretty poor. I talked about it on a previous episode. And I don't know, I really enjoyed Wednesday, but it's almost like the stuff that's come since has possibly put me off it a little bit more in terms of her performances and stuff and some of the things she's been saying. I don't know, it's a weird one. It was huge. Do you know it's their number 1 most successful ever show on Netflix, Wednesday? Did you know that, Rob?
I did not know that.
It is the number one biggest hit they have ever had. Bigger than Stranger Things. So I feel like maybe they've had to blank check it to get her to come back. I'm not sure she was original, and that's the reason we've had a big gap as well between the 1 and 2. I don't think she was intending to do a second season.
True, but we also had a Scream film, I believe, being recorded in between. We've had
she's done loads of stuff,
multiple other film roles, and filming a season of TV is very
time consuming.
So I can understand it being difficult and complicated for it to fit into her schedule.
Yeah, so it could just be that, or it could be that she was trying to go off and become a movie star, and then she's had to come back. We don't know, do we? Right? It's easy to go either way on that one. But
it's an expensive cast. You know, we've got Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia. You know, she's not going to be cheap. Even if she's in 2 or 3 episodes, she's not going to be a cheap sign.
Don't forget Emma Myers, now famous for the Minecraft movie. Kill me now.
Yeah. I love Minecraft. I am a huge Minecraft fan. I follow multiple Minecraft YouTubers. I have played multiple modded Minecraft servers. I'm still not intending to watch the Minecraft movie anytime soon.
Did you listen to my thoughts on the Minecraft movie from the last episode, Rob?
I can't recall me getting through that episode so far, unfortunately. I can't imagine they would have been broadly positive.
I gave it 1 star, Rob.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So, it's a shame. You need to watch it so we can talk about it. It'll be fun. We need to do that. I'd be very curious to see what you think as a fan of Michael, because I try to be as fair as possible as a non-fan, right? But anyway, we're digressing. Maybe we'll touch on that in movies. And that's out in August, season 2 of Wednesday. It's out in August. Okay, right. So let's wrap up Tudum, and let's move on to a little bit of video games. Hey guys, let's talk a bit about some games and also a little bit about sport. This is where Rob can have a nap, probably. Yeah, probably have a little nap. Though I did say to him, because we're going to be talking about F1 25, I said it's a racing game. Rob, you've played racing games. We could talk about some racing game stuff.
So where are the guns and the power-ups and the blue shells and the banana peels? Where are those in F1 2025?
So, right, F1 does have some gamey elements. There is an overtake button, which the real drivers have in reality, where they store up like this energy they recover through braking, which can be used to help them, give them a bit of a speed boost to overtake opponents on the track, and you can do that in the game. So there is some gamified moments inside of F1 25. I really wanted to just touch on F1 25 because this is the only sports game I play annually, religiously, without fail, buy it every year, because I'm a huge fan of the sport. And this year's F1 25 is this year's F1 25 is the best one they've done in quite a few years, because they had a lot of problems with some of the car handling aspects and how the game felt, especially on controllers, which is how the majority of players play it on an Xbox or a PlayStation, right? We don't usually have a sim racing setup in your home. Some people do, don't get me wrong, and I'm very jealous of that, but most of us don't. And there were big issues with how the game felt on controller, and that has been massively improved this year. The game feels so much better. The cars feel so much better on the track. You feel so much more capable in the handling models. And obviously, with F1 25, because it is kind of this game which is trying to sort of appeal to everyone. So everybody from the most kind of like low level, I just want to pick up an F1 game because I've been watching Drive to Survive, people never played one before, all the way up to borderline sim races. So because of that, they have a huge amount of customization with the handling options. And I play somewhere in the middle. So I don't play with a manual gearbox, but I do play with traction control to a limited setting. So I have to really think about how I put the power down and how I take the corners. And I do think this game, that they've really hit the balance. They've really found that spot, that sweet spot where it's fun and it's like I can do well in a race depending on my car specs and which team I'm playing at. Or, I can at least feel like I can challenge for places and that I can hold my own. And, when you play with the difficulty sliders as well and how hard you want to make your opponents think, that all feels as it should, that, when you are getting up close to the max settings, they are going to be really challenging, but they're also not, for the first time in a long time, they don't feel perfect. This is one of the hardest things, Rob, actually, in a racing game, is to make your opponents feel like they're human and then they can make mistakes. Because if they just stick to that racing line and they're perfect all the time, realistically, you should never be able to beat them, right? So then what does the AI do? It just makes them slower, which is kind of dull. Right. And it does, of course, do that to a degree, but it also, the easier things in racing can happen, which you can't predict. So a tire could go, a little bit of contact could result in a crash, things of that nature. And playing this year's, I'd have to say the AI seems to make those sort of organic, believable mistakes a lot more than I've seen in some of the previous iterations of the franchise, which is great because it makes the races unpredictable. You could be in a really bad position, a mistake could happen that could create a multiple car crash, which could result in a safety car, which could give you an opportunity to really challenge again for more places. So that I think is brilliant. And then they've done work on the graphics model this year and it looks better than ever. They've done work on remodeling some of the tracks using LiDAR data, so it's incredibly accurate to real life, which honestly I thought when I read that I was like, yeah, really? But then I've raced on those tracks and no, it is like noticeable. They do feel more real. They do feel more like you're in this place which you recognize from television over watching the sport for many years, which is great. Little details that I was racing at in Brazil at Sao Paulo and I took a corner poorly and I went into I started to head towards the runoff area, and I caught one of the sort of like, not barriers, but like humps on the side of the road that try to keep you in the track. And I caught it at a strange angle, which actually launched my car. So because it hit my the underside of my car in a certain way, I kind of bumped up, and then I caught it again. I bumped up even higher. Something you can see when you watch the sport, but not something you usually get in the game, where they've actually modeled the physics to accurately do that to the vehicle. And again, it just makes it feel real. It makes it feel like you can't take those risks like I thought I could in the previous games, right? Because that's what I've learned from being able to do it. This time, it actually had the effect it would have done in the real sport. And I think it's the closest they've gotten in a long time to making it feel like a real representation of the sport. They've also done things like overhaul the career modes. Once again, they've got this is the third iteration of their breaking point story that they've got in there, which is continuing this storyline between a certain group of characters, which they have kind of every alternate year. So this has been going for about 6 years now, as you watch these characters go through their career and go through their careers and the kind of drama that ensues. This is very much inspired by the popularity of the Drive to Survive documentary, where people have gotten to know more and more about the behind the scenes of the sport, and they've kind of brought that drama into the game. And I think it's really fun. It's nothing like groundbreaking. You're not going to be surprised, but I mean, there's only so much they can do with it, but the characters do feel real, sort of really realistic and connected to the reality of the sport and the kind of personalities and the kind of stresses that those people might be under. And I think they do a good job of that. It's a bit of EastEnders meets Formula One, which is a fun one. They've got some elements from the new F1 movie in there as well, which is the AGPX racing team, starring Brad Pitt, who's been fully scanned and is a driver you can actually race as in the game, which is pretty funny to be able to drive as Brad Pitt, but sure. Why not?
You said Formula One cross with EastEnders, and all that's got running through my head is "Get out of my racing garage" and stuff like that. Get out of my pit instead of get out of my pub.
I don't want to talk about specifics in the storyline because they would be actual spoilers, but there is some big human drama that feels very much like, father-son stuff that feels like it could come out of a soap opera, and it's sort of like, but it's really good, and it's like really well done. The CGI models, what they've done with it, EA have really stepped that up this year. Everything looks better, and I think. So the other game that Codemasters was making was the F1 Manager games, which have been cancelled after 2 years of an attempt at that. I don't think they got enough interest, but elements of that management has now come into the mainline series, the F1 games that I'm talking about today. So they've brought in some more management elements into the career mode so that it feels, again, a bit more realistic. You have to think about things more like you would as a team owner, and it doesn't just feel like, you just an owner that goes out and races. Now the owner has a stable of drivers, and you're not an actual racer yourself, for example. So that's a nice change, because it did always feel a bit unrealistic. It had happened in the past, but we're going back a long time when there were owner drivers in Formula One. That did happen in reality, but we're going back to like the 70s and the 80s. So it's not really been a thing in a long time. So no, it just feels, I won't go in too long because Rob wants to die. But it does feel like a really good version of F1 this year. And if you're at all interested in the sport, you may be watching Drive to Survive and catching the odd race. Yeah, it's a good one. I will pivot this really quick and just talk about the sport a little bit. It's the Spanish GP this week. We had Monaco last week. Monaco was terrible, as always, and especially in the modern era, it was a bad race. It hasn't been a good race in a long time. They need to do something about that. They tried to do something this year by enforcing a mandatory 2 pit stop rule. All it did was, I kid you not, Rob, this was crazy. All it did was it had certain lower team guys just driving around the track at massively under speed because they know nobody can pass them because it's Monaco. So what they were doing is they were creating gaps for their teammates to pit so that they wouldn't lose a place in the race. And they would held up the cars behind them to do that. It was grim, mate. Like, it was it wasn't fastest car wins, it was slowest car wins. And it was like, this isn't racing. This is BS.
It sounds like something would come out of Top Gear, not.
It was comical. It was embarrassing. It was like, it was bad. Spanish GP, however, is a much more traditional race. That's going to be coming up at time of recording in a few hours, which I'll be watching live. Quite excited to watch that as always. But yeah, the season's an interesting one. Max isn't dominant. McLaren's doing great. McLaren's been my team for many, many, many years, so it's great to see them winning. And it looks like they're going to take the championship again this year, and possibly not just constructors, but also drivers' championship. But the question is, will it be Piastri or will it be Norris? Hard to say at this point. We've got a lot of season to go. More races than ever. Did you know that, Rob? In a season of F1 now, 24 races in a year.
24 whole races.
It's on all the time now. So
isn't that a thing? 24 whole races.
But no, check out F1 25 if you have any interest in Formula One. The sport's interesting at the minute as well. So check that out. But Rob, I will now bring that to a blessed close for you. Imagine if you weren't here, right, and I was soloing this. I'd have probably just spent like 45 minutes talking about F1 and just made all of our listeners disappear forever.
Yep.
So
they'd have driven away.
Did you want to talk about any game stuff, Rob?
No. I don't have any interesting games that I'm playing at the moment. Right. I imagine you're cutting this bit out.
What do you mean? No? Why would I cut this out? I was just asking if you wanted to already game stuff.
No, I've been dabbling a little bit in Final Fantasy 3 of all modern Final Fantasies. Mostly is nostalgia. One of my big hobbies is Magic the Gathering, the trading card game. I can feel Ben now glazing his eyes over, so it's my turn for a bit of revenge. And they're doing a Final Fantasy Universes Beyond set, which is essentially a collection of cards that focus on an external IP that they're making Magic card variants of. So in this particular set, it's themed around the Final Fantasy game. Not one of them, all 15 of them. So we have key characters from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through to like 16, I think, is the current maximum number with Ifrit, and I forget the main character because it's on PlayStation and I have not played it. But we have fantastically thematic cards for Cloud, for Sephiroth, for Tidus, for Yuna. You know, all of the most famous and well-known Final Fantasy characters have cards. And one of my first Final Fantasy games outside of number 10 was number 3 on the DS, of all things. So I've been dabbling in Final Fantasy 3 a little bit. I've been dabbling as well in Poker Rogue, which is a Pokemon-based dungeon crawler. It is entirely free to play because of licensing and Pokemon Company and Nintendo's best lawyers making sure it is, where it is a dungeon crawling game. You have, in the core game mode, you have 200 floors to climb through of just battles. There's no exploration, there's no searching, there's no free movement. You go from battle to battle to battle. That's it. You have to craft your team using candy as a concept, so each Pokemon will be worth something different. A Pokemon like Mewtwo, which is iconic and super powerful, would cost 7 to put on your team, whereas a Pokemon like Caterpie, which is a caterpillar, might only cost 2, and you have a total of 10 to work with. So you can build crazy teams, you can upgrade them. The more runs you do, the more candy you earn, the more items you collect, and you incrementally can improve them with custom passive abilities made by the developers, which is Page Fault Games, and then get eggs them to hatch more of them, to have hidden abilities and all sorts of things. There's a thriving community behind this game. Like I say, it's entirely free to play. If you like Pokemon, pokerogue.net, Poke Rogue, is how you spell that, is definitely worth going. I think this morning there was about 7,500 people playing when I logged on this morning.
I didn't realise it wasn't an official thing. Yeah, so no. when you told me about it, this is another Pal World situation.
Yes, it is entirely fan made, but they're not making any money from it. It's entirely free to play, so that's where they're safe from the lawyers because it's free. Yeah.
Interesting grey area, that one. No, I understand. Yeah, I bet Nintendo are watching that one closely.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah. And they're just called the Pokemon Company, aren't they? The guys that make Pokemon games. Yeah, what a creative name that is. Fair enough.
I mean, it does what it says on the tin.
It does. That's fair. All right then, let's wrap up games, and we'll be back with some movies. Right, I've got a couple of films to talk about here, Rob, I think. And I'll be curious to see if you have any interest in either of them. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the kind of, it's had a huge box office for what was a fairly unassuming release. Nobody expected it to really amount to this much, but it's done incredibly well in the cinema. And that's Sinners by Ryan Coogler from Black Panther fame and other stuff, but most people wouldn't know him from the Black Panther movies. And then also from Black Panther, but many other things, including Creed, Michael B. Jordan, who is one of the coolest, most charismatic actors working in Hollywood today. I think I always check out a new Michael B. Jordan movie because he's infinitely watchable, and he's so talented at what he does. So the kind of concept, I don't want to give it away too much, but this is a strange film because this is, I think, a great example of style over substance. And it sounds negative, right? But certain directors, in my mind, are visual directors, and certain directors are narrative directors. Now, a visual director, Christopher Nolan, right? You know, when you're going to see a Christopher Nolan film, Dunkirk, Interstellar, Tenet, you're going to be blown away by what you see on the big screen, right? It's going to be something probably you haven't seen before, done in a way you maybe haven't seen either. And it will transport you and be interesting and engaging because of that. But then when you look at his characters, bit threadbare, bit basic, not fleshed out, that's not why you're there. That writing isn't going to be up to the level of a Sorkin. It's not going to be like you're going to be checking out an Oliver Stone movie, which again, this is the other side, right? This is a narrative director. This isn't about flashy visual. This is about character work, drama, brought by powerful performances, crafted words, right? So that's the other end of the spectrum. Ryan Coogler. Sorry?
Michael Bay at that end of the spectrum, yeah.
He's neither. He's just slop. He's slop. It's enjoyable slop, but it's slop. So Ryan Coogler to me is a visual director. You look at Black Panther, right? Gorgeous, creative visuals, brilliant set pieces, that are done interestingly. Just fun things to see, right? Lots of great sets, lots of great costuming. And again, Sinners is just like that. Beautifully shot, beautifully framed, especially the first two acts before it heads into the third act, which is all set at night and where things in my mind actually go a bit off the rails. But the first two acts, it's post-slavery, but it's like post-World War I, but it's early 1900s America. It's got these big sweeping vistas of the cotton fields. It's about how the black diaspora is still feeling very much oppressed, even post-slavery, that they are second-class citizens. There's a whole element of what can we do to get ourselves out of this awful place we find ourselves in, sociologically, politically, and monetarily in the United States at this point. So that's the backdrop. So Michael B. Jordan plays two characters. He plays twins. So you get double the Michael B. Jordan, which is brilliant, right? So cool. So it's done so well because he gives different performances for each of them. They feel like distinct characters. They even hold themselves differently. They have a different physicality. This guy is so goddamn talented. I actually thought that he was a twin. Like, I thought there were two really people playing this. It was 100% convincing. And you stop seeing it. It's like after the first 10 minutes, right? You stop thinking, oh, that's Michael B. Jordan in both those roles, because it's two characters.
Michael B. Jordan and Michael C. Jordan.
C. Jordan, thank you. Yes. And you see both, and it's so well done. They have this costuming where they have things in common, but they have accent colors which are distinctive. So one goes red, one goes blue, and you think, oh, that's a really lame, simple way of doing it. But it so fits the setting and the costuming and the visual style that, again, you stop sort of thinking about it, you just see two different people. It's brilliantly well done.
Sometimes the simple visual cues are the most idiot-proof. There's no complexity because you know that Tim is red and Tom is blue. There you go. You just go with that. And the subconscious just settles into it and works.
What I think is interesting is that I would have said that would be a crutch you'd lean on if, for example, the performance wasn't good enough. But the performance is, like I said, so good that you could have just had them wearing grey and you still could have told the difference because they are so distinct in their backstories, their character, who they are, what matters to them. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers because it is still a very new film, and I think it's worth checking out. So the beyond this setting, beyond Michael B. Jordan being in this, which is honestly enough, we have this concept of they are vampires, right? There are vampires in this. It's in the trailer, right? FYI, it's in the trailer. But it doesn't, I guess, this isn't necessarily just a vampire movie. It's much more also about, like I mentioned earlier, the struggle of black people in that time frame, in that place as well. I actually think the vampire bit of this is the weakest bit, which is weird, right? Because I went into this going, vampires, gothic American setting, this is going to be awesome, horror, gore, brilliant. But then I would have just watched 3 hours of drama based around Michael B. Jordan's characters and them coming home to set up a small business and the struggles they faced with the Klan in that part of the world, right? I would have just watched that, because when the vampires come in, it's like, it's fine, but it's also not that interesting.
As someone who watched the trailer for this again, I've seen the trailers for this movie several times, but I watched the trailer again just before we went on air. There are vampires? What in the fudge? That was not clear from the trailer that I watched.
Oh, okay. No, they're in the trailer. There's dudes. I mean, they're not like. Oh, they are explicitly called vampires in the film, but they're not like flying around as bats. But they drink people's blood, and they're the monstrous element. Yeah. I mean, it, and that's the thing. That's sort of like, yeah, I get what you mean, because it is a vampire movie, but it's also not a vampire movie. And I guess that's what makes it good, but also in a way which makes me go, well, why do we bother with the vampire stuff? One thing I do want to give a shout out to, the other big sort of framing device of this is music. So this whole thing is based around the blues. And have you heard of the sort of allegory, the music and the concept of the devil at the crossroads, the choice you have to make when the devil comes to you and goes, right, I'm going to make you this amazing musician, but you're going to be mine. I will own your soul, and when you die, you will be a creature of mine. That sort of thing. That's very much from this era of desperation that people felt post World War One, especially the minority groups, where they felt completely and utterly held under, that they would give up their souls for a chance to escape. So there is this element of that metaphor and message and fable playing through this film as well, but it's also not always handled the most deftly. There's an undercurrent of it, but it's, again, I would have just wanted to see more of that human drama and almost like keep the supernatural out of it, which is really not like me, because I love monster stuff, supernatural stuff, genre fiction, all of that. I love it, but I just thought everything was so well done and the performances were so great, and the music in this film, the blues throughout this film, is just incredible. Like, some amazing music, and it is a film very much connected to its music. The whole concept is that the characters Michael B. Jordan are playing, these two brothers, are coming back from Chicago after working for Capone, and they have screwed over the Irish and they've screwed over the Italians, and they've come with the money that they've done from that back to their hometown down south to set up a club. They call it a juke joint. So this is in Prohibition America, where they've got illegal alcohol. They're going to play music. It's just going to be for their group of people, for the black people, to have a little bit of freedom, a little bit of respite from the toil of day-to-day life, and to cut loose. And then hopefully they're going to become a success off of this. And they wanted to bring a bit of light to the darkness, as it were. And then there's vampires that show up and kind of want to ruin the day. And the vampire, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but there's some. It's like the vampires aren't necessarily a metaphor for anything race related, because the race related stuff is not being doesn't need metaphor. It's right there at the forefront of the storyline. There are literal Klan characters in this, which, play a part of the finale, right? So I really don't know why there are literal, actual agents of darkness, vampires in this film, because you've got such evil being shown by real men in the form of the Klan. You don't need that metaphor. It's just unnecessary. You could have just told the story with that. So I didn't get it. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought it's incredibly well made. Michael B. Jordan's amazing. Ryan Coogler is a brilliant visual director, but it's like one too many ingredients, and it's sort of just a bit unnecessary.
Does it feel like they were trying to get out of the office on their Friday afternoon, and it's 5 to 5, and they're going, look, we need to have another element in that third act. I mean, we need to bring something else together. We've got the evil, we've got the heinous racism, and all of that sort. And we need one more thing. And the intern in the corner just stuck his hand and went, vampires.
I actually, it could have been a mixture of things, but I think I could be wrong, right? So I think he pitched this movie without the vampires, and they went, "How are you going to get people to want to go and see it?" And they go, "What you need is a genre thing that's going to hook them in, right?
Yeah.
So that you can actually, or maybe he's even gone, I want people to see this part of our history, to learn a little bit about what it was like for black people in this time period. But how am I going? Maybe he thought this: how am I going to get people to go and see it? I need to put in something that will make people want to see this, and maybe then learn a little as well while they're there." And it's a shame if that's what it was, because it does feel like an afterthought. It does feel unnecessary, and it's all over the marketing. And it's like, even though you don't necessarily see them as like, but what you see a lot of is the white people, right? There's a lot of white people with blood, like from their noses all the way down their fronts, right? Which is where they've sucked the blood out of the victims. And it's a striking visual, right? But it's just completely unnecessary. And the weird thing is the final act has a double conclusion, where it has, because there are the two brothers, so they have, and then, well, actually no, even one brother has a double conclusion, and then there's also the other brother has another. It's all very it's hard to talk about without spoiling it, but basically they wrap the vampire stuff up, they wrap up the race bit, and then they wrap the vampire stuff up again, and it's like, Jesus, it's such a mess.
Spoiler-free restraint right there.
It's such a mess. It's such a mess. That final act is such a mess. And it's like, they had all these good ideas, and it just, you're talking about sticking the landing earlier with Stranger Things. This doesn't stick the landing.
Ouch.
In my mind. Yeah.
But the worst thing is, I now do want to watch this movie.
Please. No, you should. It's good.
I'm going to find a way to watch this movie. I'm not sure if it's still in cinemas at time of recording, or whether it's now coming to streaming services, but I will find a way at some point to watch this film. As one of those sort of educational timepiece movies, another movie in that particular sort of genre would be Hidden Figures. If you've not seen that, fantastic movie, follows 3 calculators at NASA doing one of the first rocket launches.
Yes, I have seen it.
I had no idea what the movie was about when I watched it at some point many years ago, and it is honestly absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoy it. I hate some of the content in the movie, but because of what it is rampant racism and sexism in that movie, and I hate those bits, but it's incredibly educational. So I think those sorts of movies do have a good place if they're done well. It's definitely no vampires in Hidden Figures, though, which is, I think,
the first half of the movie feels like you could be watching a true story, right? Yeah. For all I know, there were these two black gangsters that grew up in the South, that went off to war in World War One, that came back, fell in with the Capone lot, running booze, running Vice, doing things like that. And then they went down back home and they set up a bar and they had a run-in with the Klan, and this is what happened. And you could 100% have bought that as a true story, and then vampires got added in. And I just don't. Oh, I mean, because vampire, that's the thing that's confusing, because vampire is often used, right, as metaphor, allegory, and things of that nature to tell another element of the story, to do with disenfranchised young people, to do with the oppression, to do with, if you look at Nosferatu, like sexual desires and freedom of women being forbidden in a certain era, and how they have to look for escape through other methods and some things of nature. And it's often used that way. But when you're telling the metaphor overtly, you don't need the metaphor. It becomes very confused.
Perhaps the metaphor is consumption. The white characters and the vampires, I'm predicting at this point, having not seen the movie, that a lot of the vampires are white, that those characters are still trying to consume the black people's lives and the black actors' lives. Maybe. I don't know.
Rob, you've actually just spoiled the movie, because there's literally a line in the movie about consumption.
Oh, well.
But it's so, everything is so, like, again, it's not symbolism or metaphor or allegory. It's overt. It's not subtext. It's just text. So it just feels so clumsy when you've literally got the villain vampire says that to Michael B. Jordan's character.
It's concerning that someone who has not watched this movie turns around and immediately goes, "Well, that's what they're doing then." Like, it's straight up. I'm still going to watch it. This is.
No, it looks brilliant, and the performances are fantastic. And I know I'm being kind of like really critical of this, but because it was so close to being like 4 or 5 stars, and instead it's 3, you know, and it's like, God damn it, like just bring some of this back. And I do think it's filmmakers looking at audiences today and going, well, we're going to have to be pretty stupid about this if we're going to get anybody to watch it, right? And it's just like, guys, have some trust in the audience. I don't know. I liked it, but I had issues. Let's go with that. The other movie I wanted to quickly touch upon because something really stood out about it. Have you ever seen the Wachowskis' Jupiter Ascending from the mid 2010s? No. It is a proper science fiction movie. Like big concept, big bold ideas, galactic stuff, you know, tied into human elements on the planet, but really big in every way, big. And I think it got really unfairly maligned when it came out. And the fact that you're kind of not even that aware of it means that you clearly missed the audiences entirely. I think it's a really fun movie, and the Wachowskis, obviously the back off after the Matrix movies, made this, and it has got their visual flair. It's got some amazing action set pieces, but visually it's so impressive. What I would like you to do, Rob, is if you watch this, and I'm pretty sure it's on streaming, look at the special effects in this movie from the era it came out in, and look at the special effects you're seeing on the screens today, and ask yourself, what the fuck happened?
Because I've seen a lot of that discourse recently.
Because it's really weird when you look at a movie from 10 years ago and it looks so much better than films look today in terms of the special effects. I mean, there is almost not a shot in this movie without a special effect in it. That's how big this movie is in terms of scope. The sci-fi visuals are constant. And they made this for a fraction of what the Marvel movies and the other movies are being made for. I mean, it had a good budget, don't get me wrong, but it was made for a lot less. And I just want to know what's happened. It's really weird, Rob. And it's a good fun, and you should watch. If you've not seen it, I think you'd enjoy it. It's a good romp, really good fun.
I've seen similar discourse. I'm going to bring him up again, and this is not what I thought I'd bring up twice in this episode, is Michael Bay and the Transformers movies. I saw literally a reel on Facebook earlier on today or last night about what happened to the CG when you've got a Transformer being literally razor thin and they have all the robots in it being so well defined and so realistic compared to some of the CG we get nowadays. It's interesting the direction we're now taking.
What I don't understand with the CG nowadays is we all know the stories that have come out of Marvel, how they basically broke the backs of these computer generated artists. You know, they asked them to do so much so fast that their working conditions are terrible. And I agree with all of that, and that's wrong. But the bit I don't understand is that there are more of these CGI studios than ever before. There are more people working in that area than ever before. The budgets are higher than they ever were before. So I still don't understand why the quality seems to have dipped so much.
I'm going to blame the typical thing, which is capitalism. All of the numbers are bigger, but where do the numbers go? Are the wages of the graphic designers and the illustrators and the engineers actually doing the work, have they improved and increased, or has just the budgets for the executives and the company rollover gotten bigger?
I think there's also an element of what the audience is willing to accept. I think the vast majority of people, and we talked about it a minute ago, right? Films being made just for streaming services, where people are watching movies, and how they are consuming them, has meant that those sorts of details and quality, the production houses are going, well, we don't need to bother, because they're not looking really. They're watching on a TV or a mobile screen or a tablet. They're not watching it on a 70mm or an IMAX screen. They're not going to notice, right? And even if they do, they don't care. They don't say anything. Nobody cares anymore, right? So I think there might also be an element of audiences don't give a crap. So why should they? Like, put that effort in. But honestly, like, you haven't checked it out. Watch Jupiter Ascending. I think there's some incredible special effects. There's this subtle moment, right, where main characters are manipulating this huge. What's it called when there's like loads of bees? Is there a name for that?
A swarm?
Yeah, but they're all swarm. That was what I wanted. Thank you. This huge swarm of bees, and she's controlling them. Right, I won't tell you any more spoilers. And she's able to control. But it's this very subtle special effect. But you're watching it and you realise every one of them is modelled. Every one of those is being animated for this scene, right?
Very good.
Thank you. Unintentional. And you realise the amount of cost that has gone into that special effect and the effort. And it's not a quick shot. There's a lot of this. And you're like, I'm sure they use some kind of algorithm or program to do it. But, there would have been a hell of a lot of effort gone into making that work. You don't see shots like that now. You don't see shots of subtle particle manipulation in animation. You just don't get it like you used to. And I just I'm watching that and I'm going, what's changed so fundamentally? I think that's that because it's a little detailed nuance. And it's like, because it's not being watched on a big screen, I don't think they're bothering. I just don't think they're bothering. Anyway, watch it. I will leave you with that thought. I think we should come back and have a chat, mate. I'd be really curious to see what you think if you look into this as well.
Of all the cast for the main character role, I must admit, because I've looked this up on IMDb whilst we were talking, and I was not expecting Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis to be the two leading characters, and that is confusing my brain, and I want to watch this now.
It's really they're. I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend the performances are going to they're Oscar worthy. They're not, but they're good. They're good. They do a good job. Everyone does. Eddie Redmayne as the main villain is hilarious. He is so much fun. He just chews the scenery with his evil. Oh my God, he's entertaining.
It's apparently streaming on Prime Video at current point of recording, so that's definitely where I'm going to be watching it.
We'll have to circle back and have a chat. Yeah, okay. I think that'll wrap up movies. We're going to come back with one final giant before we wrap this episode. We'll have a little chat about TV. Rob. I know you used to be a massive Doctor Who fan. Talk to me a little bit about Doctor Who, because something happened yesterday that I like your thoughts on.
Yeah, so I did used to be a very big fan of the revival Doctor Who. So unfortunately, I'm not a fan of the classic stuff. It's before my time. I do have a friend who is incredibly into the classic stuff and a huge fan of that. It's absolutely fine. We enjoyed going through the Christopher Eccleston era onward, and I fell off around the Tribnall, or the Chibnall even, drivel that came out. I mean, television show. So yeah, I fell off at that point. Jodie Whittaker did a very good acting job. She's a fantastic actress, and she acted incredibly well. However, I fell off due to some of the story decisions that were made. I haven't seen a lot of the Ncuti Gatwa stuff. I like him as an actor. The clips I've seen have been very good. He's a phenomenal actor, so I'm expecting good things. And I have heard from my friend who is still keeping up that it is predominantly better quality of writing, which is good because there was only one way to go, and that was up. But I'm a little concerned, as viewers who haven't come across Doctor Who, I don't know how, but haven't come across Doctor Who may not know, is that how they transition between actor to actor playing the titular role is through the process of regeneration, where the actor gets consumed in whatever special effect they're choosing at a particular point in time and turns into a different one. In this case, we've had Ncuti Gatwa.
Before you say anything, right, I think we can consider this a spoiler, but I have a feeling it's going to be all over the internet very soon. Though some of the stories I've seen are being circumspect in their headlines and avoiding saying exactly what happens. Before we come back to this, and we will spoil it, but what I wanted to touch on as well is that a little bit of behind the scenes about this era with Ncuti. First of all, it sounds to me like he only ever signed up for the 2 seasons. And that was the agreement, so it's not like he's been ousted.
But
secondly,
this has come out of left field. People were not
Yeah,
expecting
they've kept
this.
They've kept
Yeah.
this quiet. Yeah. This is the interesting here with Doctor Who now. It's now become a co-pro, right? A co-production with Disney. So they've kind of signed up with Disney for Doctor Who to bring more money into the project. And I think most people could say that you can see that on the screen, and that it has improved the production values of the last 2 seasons. However, even with that, lowest viewer numbers ever of the last 2 seasons. So it has not done well for them either.
No.
And now, with these caveats in mind, big spoiler warning, we are going to talk about what looks like the result of the new regeneration. Little pause. Back to you, Rob.
So, Ncuti Gatwa, in the last episode of the current season, after facing off with the Rani, another famous old Time Lord, regenerates into Billy Piper from
Famously,
Christopher Eccleston's run.
Rose Tyler.
Rose Tyler. I don't think she's portraying Rose Tyler as now the Doctor, but why is Billy Piper back?
Hold on. You think they've got Billy Piper back and she's not going to be Rose Tyler?
Yes.
So they're doing a Robert Downey Jr.?
Essentially, yes. Or I'm going to call it a Peter Capaldi to keep it in Doctor Who universe, because Capaldi was previously in an episode of Doctor Who as a Roman and then was brought as the Doctor. They're just doing the other way round.
But not Rose Tyler, who was a recurring character for multiple years.
What?
Who was the most famous companion for a very long time, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, this screams of desperation to me. And again, I haven't watched since even further back than you, right? I gave up somewhere in Matt Smith's era. I got just bored of it. Like, it was just the same thing. I think Matt Smith really broke it for me, because they just sort of, that whole timey-wimey stuff, which was basically this hand-wavy way of going, we're not actually going to try and have any internal logic anymore, which really pissed me off. That sci-fi, you have to stick to your own rules, otherwise it just becomes bullshit, right? And that's an personal issue for me with science fiction. But
I agree with that point. Some of Matt Smith's era was a bit rough. He became an infinitely better character the second his companions died.
okay.
That's when he became interesting. He was trying too hard to be David Tennant, in my view. Anyway.
So this casting, I mean, obviously at the beginning of this new Russell T Davies era, we had the bi thing, where, what's it called? Bi regeneration. Yeah, where he got split and we had Ncuti and Tennant, and he was able to give that epilogue to David Tennant's character as well in those final episodes. He had like a few episodes. And so, you know, what that tells me is Russell is not afraid to play the gimmick, to do the big fan shock moment. And then he does tie things up sometimes he ties things up in a kind of way that makes sense or works. But he's only did that a couple of years ago, or even less than that, and he's playing it again with now bringing back Rose.
The problem with the bi-generations as well is that they explain it in the show that a bi-generation is an incredibly rare event, and it's already happened a second time with the Rani. She had a bi-generation with another character from the series, so it's already happened twice in the space of like 2 years. Like, it's smacking of needing nostalgia. Get the nostalgia bait in. Quick, get Billy Piper back in, because people liked her.
But also, people liked her, yes, right? Because she was the first companion after Doctor Who came back, right, with Christopher Eccleston. That was a big deal. I don't know if people liked her character a lot in the beginning. I think she had some decent storylines, and she didn't hang around for that long, if you remember. Rose Tyler wasn't around for like the length of time that some of the other companions have been around. But also, as a stunt move, it just doesn't. I don't think it works because she doesn't have that classic connection to an early days Doctor Who fans. She's too old to kind of be connected to the newer fans, right? When you think about kids and getting into Doctor Who and stuff. So so that makes me think then, is there a really good narrative reason to do this? And it isn't going to be just panic, we need to do something to get people talking about Doctor Who and watching it. At least this way, we can guarantee that the first episode of the next season will have a good viewership, because everybody's going to want to know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a dead cert. People will want to see what happens. And the thing is, even if it was a publicity stunt to get people talking about it, look at what we're doing right now. We're sitting here talking about it. As people who
Yeah.
don't watch Doctor Who, we're sat here talking about Doctor Who at length, trying to figure out what's going on.
And
so
genuinely
the
considering
manoeuvres worked.
watching the next one, and because of this, and also, and that's why I watched Russell T come, because when he came back, and I watched the Tennant stuff, and I watched that first episode of Cheat purely because of all of that, and it does work. But then I think what we've seen is like those numbers all then fell off a cliff, right? Which is what's happened with Tudum's run. Like all those viewers they got back all left because it was just more of the same lightweight, kind of not that interesting Doctor Who, which has been its MO for a long time now. I think they're going to need to do something quite fundamentally drastic if they have any hopes of keeping this show going, because I don't think Disney will just hang around helping to fund this if it doesn't get the numbers back.
No,
they're
Disney
not going to do that.
Pretty good at cutting things off at the knees when they have to.
Yeah. So, what a weird thing to read this morning. I saw the headline and went, Rob, have you seen this? And it's like, no, what? Oh my God. What is this crap?
Of all the actors and actresses that I expected Ncuti to ever regenerate into, Billie Piper was literally not even close to being on the list. So, yeah.
Bizarre.
We'll have to see what happens.
Okay, I want to touch quickly on a Netflix show that's just started. All the episodes are up, though, as I was going to say, as Netflix does, but they don't always put them all up together, as we talked about earlier. But Department Q on Netflix, which, Rob, you've probably not looked at, I wouldn't have thought. Maybe not.
Yeah, I've seen some publicity for it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so it stars Matthew Good, who's done lots and lots and lots of shows. Pretty famous British actor. Last big one, I guess, he did was the Discovery of Witches series. But he's just a really good actor. And in this, this is a show based off a series of very famous Danish books, Danish crime novels, which have been adapted into some very successful Danish movies. I believe there have been 6 movies, and it's basically about this character that Matthew Good plays, who is infinitely unlikable. He is basically this policeman that is an absolute arsehat to everyone around him at all times, and that's kind of a fun character to watch, right? But he's got a good actor can be given that and make it charismatic and something you want to see. It comes to mind Gary Oldman in Slow Horses, which, Rob, I don't know if you've watched, but you really should watch Slow Horses. It's so good. But again, he is disgusting and awful in that, and yet you love him. And in this, Matthew Good is like sarcastic, know-it-all, thinks he's better than everyone in the room, whatever room he's in. He's just this he's very down, and the way he dresses as well is quite schlubby, and he's just like, oh, I'm so over life, basically. What's the point? You're all such idiots all the time. And so, obviously, Rob, knowing me, I could relate. So, I get on well with this character. I really vibe with Matthew Good in this. He's just brilliant in it. He's a brilliant actor. But so again, I really don't want to spoil this. The first episode I would recommend you watch it because structurally it's really interesting, and then the concept of what Matthew Good has been set up to do in this is cold cases, right? Which a cold case crime show is not a new idea. There are a million of those, right? Especially from America. But something about the way this is written, the way that they structure the show, the way the characters are introduced, the first opening 5 minutes, by the way, had me. I was having something to eat at the time, and I nearly choked on the food I was having because I was so surprised by something that happened. I was like, oh, bloody hell, like that. I really had a reaction, and it was so affecting and powerful. And then it's very enjoyable, and you get like reveals through the episode, and then there's a pretty big one at the end, to say the least. And it's really, 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 really well done. And I think it's just, I have to be really careful with this one because even talking about how it works would give it away. So I have to just sort of say, trust me, worth checking out, because it isn't a cookie cutter procedural. It isn't just another crime show like that with cold cases, like, Unforgotten and stuff like that. It is feels unique, and you can see why it's very, very popular in Scandinavian countries. It's awesome. Like, I'm going to definitely watch more. Yeah, really, really good.
I'm intrigued by that first episode, so I'm at least going to watch that. I've been on a little crime spree on Netflix myself at the moment.
Oh, perfect.
I've been watching The Fall, which was old broadcast, which is quite a few years old, with Gillian Anderson and Jamie
Yeah.
Dornan, which I've highly enjoyed. Still working my way through that.
Well, you know, that's based on that's Scandi crime as well, right?
Is it really?
Yeah, it's based on it's based on Scandinavian crime stuff.
Yeah. Okay, that's no wonder I enjoy it. It's high quality made. It's good. I've also been dabbling in some true crime with the Tylenol murders.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm still working through. It's a special that came out recently with multiple episodes where they follow a spate of killings that happened in America where Tylenol was laced with cyanide and just put in random convenience and grocery stores, and people bought it and just had the bad luck to have a tablet with cyanide in it and died.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was a huge problem in the 80s. It's definitely, if you like true crime, it's definitely worth a watch because it's quite interesting.
Mate, crimes in the 70s and the 80s, just crazy, man. Like, especially in America. Like, you just have serial killers just like wandering around the United States, just murdering people on the whenever they fancied. Like, just wandering around murdering people. And a lot of them have obviously been caught or died since and stuff. But the numbers we might never know how many victims they really had.
No,
like hundreds of people potentially. It's crazy.
Bad serial killers have been found. I am convinced of the fact that there are infinitely more serial killers that we are not aware of that were just smarter and were not caught.
Yeah, like missing people, and you'll never know. They're probably dead. They probably killed, but there's hundreds of thousands of them, right? And it's just mad. But that's look, check out. I mean, Department Q is a weird title for this, and I think it doesn't make you think, ooh, clever sort of crime twisty thing, but genuinely, like, it's really good. I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, that's it for TV Talk. We've had a bumper episode, so let's move into the epilogue, and we'll say our goodbyes, Rob. So that has been another episode of 8 Dead Giants. I hope you've enjoyed that. Rob, how was that for you?
It was wonderful. It was nice talking about TV and movies at a great length rather than games, which is where I typically spend more of my time. So it was nice having a change in media for a change.
I knew what I was going to ask you, because the last time we spoke, you said I convinced you to watch Andor.
I restarted episode 1, season 1, to watch the whole story, and my God, I'm struggling through that. I genuinely started with every intent of carrying on, and I'm struggling getting through the rough bits that I had before.
Remind me how it... I can't remember how it's... What does it start with?
Where he goes and kills 2 agents on a different planet, and then he goes back and has to speak to his mate going, yeah, I was with you last night, wasn't I? Winky face.
So it's the second arc of season 1 where he's doing mission, right, with rebels, is when it really starts to get good. But that first arc is important because it does set up the character and the dynamics and the world really, really effectively. But yeah, that second arc where he's doing like rebel mission is when it really starts to get good. And then the third arc is amazing. So, go stick with it, Rob.
I will.
It's been really good having you on and talking a lot about movies and TV and Netflix and stuff like that. That's been fun as always. And I think next week is going to be, like I teased at the beginning, a big games episode. Big, all about the games. So it was good to talk about movies and TV this time. Yeah. It's going to be different next time. So I will say have a lovely one. Guys, look, like, subscribe, YouTube. We just looked earlier. I kid you not, you can find us on Audible. Like, how weird is that? Like, where you can get audiobooks. We're on Audible because they do podcasts now. We're on, anywhere you can find a podcast. So iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Last FM. I could keep going. There's millions of these places now. And leave us reviews, please. Look, 5-star review will help so much with the algorithm, with discoverability on any and all of these platforms. Leave us a 5-star review on all of them. Go to all of them, subscribe to us, listen to that first episode over and over and over again, and give me 5 stars. Give Rob 5 stars. Give Leah 5 stars. Give Matt 5 stars. Everyone that's been on the show so far, they all deserve 5 stars. My giants are my peeps. We all deserve 5 stars. Wouldn't you agree, Rob?
And you deserve 5 stars as well for bringing us all together.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very kind of you to say. Yeah, so we will be back next week. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good week. Enjoy the sun. Bye, guys.